the IOG grant. And this session is extremely relevant to that because it's about building sustainability into your outreach practice. So for me personally, IOG has huge significance, having been a twice recipient myself. And it's now very exciting and feels like coming full circle to be on the other side of the program. So thank you all for taking time and being here. Manjula, you can proceed with Sudhira's introduction, and then we'll get into the meat of the session. Manjula Harikrishna at IndiaBioscience is the lead in the IOG program. And also there today in our webinar are other IndiaBioscience team members like Shweta, Suchi, Ankita, and Aditya.
So thanks, Sudhira, for agreeing to be part of this informative skill building session for all our IOG awardees. So just a second. So Sudhira has a PhD from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and he's the director of Gubbi Labs, a private research collective that works on a host of domains ranging from sustainable ecosystem to livable settlements using transdisciplinary approaches. He is a researcher and and a new geographer using using and propagating free and open source mapping tools, studying cities and ecosystem. In this session, you will hear from him on how they started Gubbi Labs and grew into a sustainable enterprise, as well as discuss your own consideration and challenges that you might be facing while taking up this IOG project, as well as sustaining your outreach programs. So over to you, Sudhira. Thanks again. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karishma, Manjula, and everyone at IndiaBioscience. It's nice to be sharing the sort of journey and experience of what we've attempted. As in fact, I keep saying Gubbi Labs is like a laboratory, so you keep experimenting and you try doing things that you like to do. So that's what we have been always following on that front. I'll not get into details on the key things of Gubbi Labs, but maybe I will just touch upon some elements on scientific enterprise and then how we plunged into science communication, and then talk about what we have done through Research Matters as our science communication experiment in that sense, or ongoing effort in science communication there. And then I only have 2 slides on something on trying to build a sustainable model, so to say, and we'll discuss that in brief. And then I'll be happy to, I think we'll gather this is more of a workshop mode. So I will stop there, and then we'll be open for questions and discussions. I think we'll keep it like that. I've also mentioned I'm affiliated with India Literacy Project, which is a non-profit that works in improving quality of education in government schools. And something that we also started off at Gubbi way back in 2011 is something called as multidimensional learning space, working as in a way making schools as multidimensional learning space. And today we are now also working across 8 states and reaching out to over 25 to 30 lakh students across these states. And one of the components of it is also a science kit that has been very popular. And till date, we have distributed more than 6,000 such science kits and almost 5,500 in all the 7 districts of North Karnataka only, as in apart from many other states. I can share links on that. I will not be talking much on that here, but I will talk more on from I guess scientific research perspective and the science communication bit. I'll park that there. I think since most of you are researchers, I think something that I'm sure you would perhaps all agree that we are all in this what I call as the scientific enterprise. In the sense, we are in the business of production of knowledge. I think that's the key thing that as any scientist or researcher we would be doing. Sorry, is my slides? I just changed the slide. So this now.
Yes, we can
see. Did it change? Okay, yeah.
It changed, yes.
Thanks. Yeah. So in the scientific, like I was telling, we are all in the scientific enterprise. And when I say enterprise, it's an ongoing effort. I guess I'm sure all of you will agree that it's a never-ending process, and we are always trying to, as the saying goes, right, like standing on the shoulders of change. So you try to stand on past knowledge and build on new knowledge. So in a sense, we are always in the business of production of knowledge. So where most of our work is always, as scientists and researchers, is to incrementally or push the frontiers of knowledge, in the sense, expand the boundaries of our knowledge. I guess that's been the fundamental thing that uh, as scientists and researchers we are engaged in. And that's what is largely the scientific enterprise. And also at some point, I think all of this research on basic science, and then when that gets translated into applied sense, into technology, or all the fruits of the knowledge that has been produced, is eventually going to help and enhance quality of life and make lives better across. Not necessarily there has to be like a tangible benefit of all knowledge production, but I think the quest for most of us is to understand why, how, and answer those questions. So I'm sure you would also come across debates on uh, why should this be done, as in should there be always any tangible benefits or outputs of it? Not necessarily, as in it's very difficult to draw a line saying any new research that one does should be translated or should be translated into something that is very tangible in some period of time. That I think is uh, short-sighted in that sense. So, but I guess the primary goal is to, like I said, expand the horizons of our knowledge, or expand the boundaries of knowledge itself. And there's also a greater need, or sort of enhance this public understanding of science itself, because eventually only when people start appreciating what's going on, or where do we stand, I think the bar on scientific literacy is very key, so that there is again greater appreciation towards science in that sense. I keep sort of quoting a couple of examples in the sense uh, on whether science has helped or not, and I draw this always draw these examples from IISc, one on the Mysore sandal soap story, and the ISRO itself. ISRO has been sort of I guess I may not be wrong if I say it's IIS's baby in that sense, because bulk of things that ISRO has managed to produce has been significantly contributed by pure and applied research at IISc, right from some 1930s and early for 1940s itself. Uh, so, like for instance, I shared these examples during the NPDA, I guess, uh, talk as well. But I'll quickly tell you these two incidents. I think that is uh, very useful. Yeah. So first on the Mysore sandal soap, I guess most of you know of the IIS's sort of IIS's history is that the Mysore king Krishrajendra Vadir was instrumental in giving land to the institute and all that, and coincidentally uh, he had appointed the Diwan to be on the Council of the Institute of Science. And when the First World War broke in 1914, back then Mysore Kingdom was exporting sandalwood, and they realized that they could no longer export sandalwood, and there was a stockpile that was piling up, and so they were not sure. And Sir M. Vishwesvaraya attends the council meeting at IIS in 1914 and poses a challenge to the professors in organic chemistry, saying, what can we do with this? And the scientists then work on for the next 2 years trying to sort of extract oil and other wood distillation experiments. There are archives that IISc has also pulled out papers that have been published on that front. And by end of, I guess, 16, they go back to Vishwesvaraya and say, this is how you can make a soap or detergent and all of that, and extract from, using all the extracts from sandalwood. So 1917, Vishwesvaraya grants land, convinces the king, and also grants the land. And the soap factory started by end of 1970. Incidentally, in 2017, Mysore Sandal Soap celebrated the centenary year. And today it is called as Karnataka Soaps and Detergents Limited. It's a Government of Karnataka enterprise, but it stands tall for over 100 years. And something that was very instrumental was the research that was done at IISc and to get get the soap factory itself coming. And some of you, if you have traveled on Bangalore Metro, you would see that there is a soap factory stop and all of it. So it's a very iconic thing. The other thing that also I would like to talk about on ISRO is all we know of, a majority of us would think of ISRO as rocket launching and aerodynamic stuff. But there were also two other disciplines that I think were very critical. One of them is electrical communication, and the other one is materials, as in metallurgy. Incidentally, IISc had these two departments that also were, came up in early 40s. And when Vikram Sarabhai and then Professor Satish Dhawan steered ISRO. So for them, all the basic research that was required to translate was all done. In the sense, electrical communication engineering department at IISc was able to kind of come up with things that when you launch a satellite, it has to communicate with your vehicle, satellite launch vehicle, and you should be able to control and navigate them. And all of that was the technology was there with EC. Similarly, beyond aerodynamics, of course, aerospace also was there since 80s, since 1940s. But beyond the aerodynamics part of it, you also had to make sure that any material, if it has to exit from the Earth's atmosphere, has to withstand extreme temperature and pressure without affecting the actual payload inside the launch vehicle. So for which I think metallurgy folks came in and they were able to kind of pull in different alloys and all of it uh, and have that in place. So I think that was very instrumental, and all three departments played a crucial role in getting things through. And I think that was phenomenal. I think one can talk or pull out stories like that a lot, saying where basic research has helped. And one can also extend the way we have become more self-reliant in terms of communication technologies as well, because we had our own satellites to kind of play, and that happened because India had our own space program. So a lot of things have been instrumental because there was a lot of investment in basic sciences early on, and that really helped us catapult, like maybe after 30-40 years. So in that sense, investing in research is a long stand, like long termish thing, and then one can start seeing its benefits only after like a couple of decades, depending on what happens. As in, again, like I said earlier, again, the caveat is that not necessarily always you should say there has to be some tangible outcome of it. Not necessarily. I'm sure when people started working in 40s and 50s on metallurgy or even electrical communication, I don't think they had even thought of looking at space launch vehicles and stuff like that. But having said that, I think at large, right, I think it's important that uh, as researchers, it's very crucial that we engage with communities and public at large in different levels. So one, I have these three categories primarily as students, citizens, and policymakers. Students, because you have to really inspire them and make them motivated to pursue science. In fact, so like I can tell you of my personal anecdote is that somebody came to me and really said that had he read some article that he had published earlier when he was in a high school, he would have been really interested to pursue science. But for some reason, like he didn't have that appreciation back then, so he couldn't pursue science. As in things like that, right? As in there are like we've seen that because we've been doing that, but I think it's also important that you inspire, you motivate students to pursue science. I think that's more fundamental. And people at large, because they need to know, because everybody, right, as in any taxpayer, like most of our research is done in public funded institutions, and every taxpayer also has a right to know. Beyond that, every citizen also has a right to know, as enshrined in our constitution, right? And at a larger level, we also have to see that how our policymakers think of it. It could be both a combination of your politicians and the bureaucracy, in the sense the IAS or IFS and people who are working with central and state agencies. You have to, the key is to engage with them very creatively in a way that they can appreciate why something has to happen, and why what is what is happening, and why it is important for them to know, and things like that. And that has a different implication in the long run. Having said that, I think I'll quickly move on to where we started off, particularly into science communication. This was way back in, I guess, during 2013, 14, now close to 10 years. As in, uh, we realized that there is a gap in science communication in that sense, because bunch of us, myself, Sandhya, and Madhurima, all of us had PhDs from IISc, and we see that, so that like IISc does world-class research, and people publish in international publications, but uh, people outside the campus really don't know what's really happening. And with that, we started, we had a chance to meet Professor Balram, who was then the director, and he was super encouraging, and it allowed us to, sort of, he paved the way to set up the Science Media Center at IISc. And what we did back then was just pick up, publish research papers and write press releases out of it. And as we started gradually also started expanding, working with other institutions like NIAS, IA, RRI, NCBS, and others. And by 2016, we realized we could no longer have a science media center at IISc portal. So we had to have some other umbrella to post all our stories. So we started off as Research Matters in 2016. And most of our stories, as in all our stories, are all under the Creative Commons license. And at the moment, we have it in 5 different languages as well. And what we have also established in the process is sort of having the process of content discovery, and figuring out what is newsworthy research publications and things like that. And we write popular stories based on that. And something that stands out for us is that mostly we kind of vet our stories with the concerned researcher, so that we don't want to make any factual mistakes when we write the story in lieu of making it, sort of accessible. Uh, In-house, we have a team of editors and a bunch of writers, translators, who are also on freelancing mode. And like we have a good team across different things. So at best, and during a very good peak time, I guess we have also tried writing almost 5 better stories per week, and now of late it has come down because we are doing some revamping in-house. But beyond research stories, something that we also try to do is write opinion pieces, feature articles, infographics, and bunch of other things as well. So something that we've tried experimenting and done things is like we've tried with Cytones, we had SciQs, we had podcasts, beyond press releases and feature articles and deep dives and bunch of things. We are also now experimenting with video making for popularizing science stories and all of it. Hopefully, very soon you will see them as well. Something that we have tried attempted is collaborating with different folks, particularly like including artists and others who can help making things communicate better. So this was part of during the Nobel Prize series. Uh, we had to bring out some special feature on a couple of scientists. So we had to think of very creatively getting a sort of a poster out of all some of these key achievers. So we, like, if you see, apart from their portrait image, we had to bring out something that is very fundamental of theirs. So we had to kind of bring things like that and Thankfully, we had very talented artists who could, mesh them and sort of, bring it out so that, you see what they are known for and things like that. Like, for instance, if you look at Sobat Siddiqui, you see the Drosophila, or you see Professor Roni Godbole, you will see uh, uh, the Large Hadron Collider and things like that, right? So this was part of the H Pradarshini, and then so till that we've had over 2,500 stories, and almost we have a very good success rate in the sense almost 30% have been picked up by different media houses, and bunch of them. The website has a good decent visiting thing as in that's ongoing. Uh, we've been active on Twitter and bunch of them, things like that. So we've been aggressively marketing with the media houses to get the stories carried out, and some of us keep writing very regular in the newspapers as well. In the last whatever as in 9, 10 years now, all of these uh, news or media houses have picked up our stories or have published stories based on our release in that sense. And so coming to the key core thing that I wanted to talk was on how do you make it sustainable. So like I think the key thing was if you look at the larger scheme of things, right? One, you should have a mechanism to discover what is newsworthy research and having access to that research. When I say having access to that research, is having access to that full paper or the PDF itself, because often sometimes some of these papers are also behind a paywall. So the best thing to do is when you find a research article that is interesting, you should simply write to any researcher. And I'm sure in our experience, any researcher, if you write to them asking a PDF copy of a paper, they will be happy to send the PDF to you. That is one. And then what is also required is a bunch of very enthusiastic and committed communicators, or science communicators or writers, for instance, who can really read through the research or is in the paper, appreciate what work has happened, and also then see through a story that will connect with the audience, the reader, whoever is reading the story. And then you also need platforms where this story that you write has to be published. So I could just simply write something and publish it on a blog, but who will read my blog? But then we'll have to figure out ways in which that story is propagated, or in a way distributed to in ways and means that more people get to read this and start appreciating the research that happens. But in all of these things, there is at least one has to really pay the writer or uh, the editor and all of that. So for which or even if you're hosting the platform, there are costs associated with it. So you also have to figure out how do you sustain or fund it in that sense. So funding becomes also a central aspect in all of this. And at times we have figured out, although initially bulk of our thing was sort of cross subsidized, because through Gubbi Labs we have been doing consulting and bunch of things where we offer services based on our skills and expertise and generate revenue, and then deploy it back to things that we like to do, which is also like science communication. So in a way, it sort of, it was cross subsidized and initially, and then that's how it was going on. But something that we've also discovered and sort of now moved on from that is we now have different things to do that is not necessarily uh, dependent on cross subsidization, because in the long run cross subsidization may not work, because you will be still a function of how much funding the main the other things can generate and keep it going. But ideally it is better to be self-generating and be sustainable independently, right? So for which what we have tried to do is we have a sort of a partnership that we have embraced with media houses like Deccan Herald, as in the printers Mysore, which are the publishers of
Deccan Herald and Prajavali in Kannada. So we have a sort of a partnership through which we have a mechanism where we kind of write stories for them and support in some of the other activities that they do and things like that. Of course, like there are other mechanisms also is like the best thing like what I haven't listed here, but we have tried multiple things like reaching out with multiple media houses, newswires in the country and abroad. But by and large, media houses doesn't like to pay. They are happy if they're getting the story for free because they have access to a lot of content, and content on science is not something they would pay for, unlike a scope in something with cricket or something with entertainment industry and stuff like that. Uh, so here, science story doesn't really sell in that sense. So media houses are very wary about paying. And although at some point we did have a sort of an partnership with the Press Trust of India, where they would use our stories and distribute across and all of it. It was not. There was no financial agreement involved in that sense. It was almost given on a low cost basis. So it was not viable in the long run. But we've experimented multiple things in that front, and I see that it takes a while to build trust and comfort levels with editors of different media houses, where they really appreciate that, in the long run, you're somebody very serious about science communication, and hence they can come back to you, and you're all through you're going to give them good quality content and not something that I would pull out something and or something like that. So that will take a while, as in, and that's something that I'm happy to say, that we have built it over time, as in this hasn't happened overnight. So it takes a long call in that sense. That is one. Two, of course, you should try to pitch with for special outreach grants like the DBT India Alliance or the one you are already having through the India Bioscience now. And something that we have also attempted and that's sort of working well, I must say, is working with academic or research institutions and scientific establishments. So at different points of time, we have been engaged by uh, Ministry of Science and Technology, DBT, DST, on some activities. We've been engaged by science academies like the Indian National Science Academy. We have engaged with many other institutions like IIT Bombay, Kanpur, Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, IISc, and things like that. So what we have done is that for different set of things based on our skills and things like that. So there are things that we have managed to offer them as services and be able to work with these scientific establishments and institutions where you have a chance to say, okay, this is what it will cost, and then they will sort of compensate for it, which will also help you to kind of see that you can continue what you're doing as science communication in that sense. And then, of course, the recent thing is also pitching with CSR. Uh, that's something that I guess is picking up now, and something that I would encourage all of you to also look up on the same lines is this book writing fellowship that the Fast India has come up with as well. So, and Fast India is also supported by a bunch of CSR. So that's something that we've been working as well to kind of raise money through CSR, and something that has worked very well uh, with India Literacy Project, where I mentioned is for the science kids, where we have a bunch of CSR who simply love to fund our science kits. As in, that's been a staple thing that has happened, and that's something that we've got through very well with CSR in that sense. Uh, yeah, I guess I'll stop here. As in, yeah, if there's
Sounds
yeah.
very good. Thank you, Sudhira. Thank you. That was quite a journey, huh? 2014 is you started. I'm going to say this right, Manjula. I'm going to say this the Kannada way. You started Gubbi Labs in 2014.
No,
Okay,
no,
of
Gubbi
all the
Labs
things it
was
takes to
started
run
in
a webinar,
2010.
in
Yeah,
2010. Okay, and 2014
yes,
is around when you moved into IISc in the Science Media
yes,
House.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
so while we are all sort of consuming that information, we'll check. If you have questions, please go ahead. We will unmute you or type it in the chat window. We'll be happy to keep this engaging now. We've taken away the slides. So any questions? Anyone wants to go? Okay, yes, please, Garima. Great.
I have one, three questions. So basically, I saw that you, as a Gubbi Lab, also offers courses which are under
Yes.
your expertise. So are these courses chargeable, and these are the revenue generation part of your lab? Second question is, you said we should approach to CSR for the pitching, and how should we do this? How should we approach to CSR? What are the sources? And because we have no idea how to do that. And third question is, you said we should be partnering with the media houses. So you wanted to say in a sense of column writing or something, or was it something else?
All right. Uh, okay. I'll start with the last question in the sense on column or engaging with the media houses. Uh, yes. So one, I think, so there are two things there again. One is if you have a large lab and you have multiple stories that are coming out, then maybe you can say you would be able to contribute something like a news story once in a quarter or something like that, because the media houses also will not want to carry only one person story every time. Like even from our experience, if I keep writing about some one particular faculty often, the editors will reject it, in the sense they say we already written about that. When we say no, this is a different one, they'll say no, no, still we don't want to write about them and things like that. So that's going to happen. But what I meant was that as a science communicator, right? Uh, there is no fixed boundary for it. As in, for instance, as in I write on technology to ecology and whatnot, as in everything that interests in science. So it doesn't stop somewhere that you only write in biology, you only write in physics, or only write in chemistry, and things like that. So as a science communicator, if you're keen on pushing on as a science communicator, then maybe you can pick up different interesting research and work with media houses in that way. On the other hand, as in the second one, the working with media is also that if your work involves any serious public engagement issue, as in if you're working, let's say, anything relevant to public policy, uh, like let's say something that is not well written, or there is a gap for any of you, I think, is talking about GM, for instance, right? As in uh, on genetically modified food or all of that is happening, right? So there has been a lot of public debate, and on which if you're working on anything related to biotech, I would say there's a need for somebody to write fairly good amount of opinion pieces there, and to make people informed about things like that. And you don't need to bring out everything in one go, but you can parcel it as a sort of a series and then start writing it and pitching it to an editor will be very useful in that sense. So
Sudhira, I think Garima's second question was related to how do you approach CSR? How do you
yes,
approach CSR
yeah,
funds?
yeah. I'll come to that. So I think I answered the third one. I'll take the second question now. So on approaching CSR, so for CSR, there's something that they find it very useful is if you have anything tangible. Incidentally, like let's say my science story is not very tangible. Of course, it gives them an appearance or a in print media or something like that. But again, I can tell you from our experience that media houses don't want to glorify any particular private organization. They're okay to mention some research happening at IIC, but the moment if it is a private organization, media houses become very wary and say we can't do a PR thing and things like that. But on the other hand, for CSR, you'll have to package things that you're doing into something that is very tangible. Like the example I gave you is that we have seen success is with our science kits, because science kits, the one that we have, it also includes a full scope and a bunch of things that we have built, mapped to curriculum from class 5 to class 10, and it's in one single kit. And the CSR is very happy to give it, because for them, they also want to do these events and all that sort of tamasha in that sense, and sort of engagement and so they like to do that. And for them, that is very tangible. So you'll have to think of ways based on what you're working on to derive something that will be tangible, and that is something the CSR will be happy to take on. And reaching out to them, I think there are a bunch of them, from the Infosys Science Foundation to uh, Kiran Majumdar Shah's thing, and whole bunch of them. Everybody are interested. Like uh, in fact, apart from the Infosys Foundation itself is also sort of distributing our science kits in that sense. So because they also see something like I said, when I say tangible, uh, something that we have also found very useful is uh, like working with Dell. Uh, they also want to, like Dell and many other companies here who are into CSR as well. They want to engage their employees in activities. So if you're able to come out with activities that will also part of it engage, like so part of it something is that that's where when I say science communication, it not necessarily has to be just written. And when it is tangible, it can be even a day-long outdoor activity where you take them to a water body, show them different set of things, make them do some activity. Or we also had engagement activities like if you've seen a fold scope, how to assemble a fold scope. So volunteers love to do that, and that is tangible, because end of it they assemble a full scope, they have a slide, and then you see through it and you see some a different world. So for them, that's an engagement, right? As in, for us, of course, it is, what is it, as in, like, if you ask somebody, any of us, as in for serious researchers, did you watch that inside in the full scope or something, or in under a microscope, we will be soon, I guess, very dismissive of it, in the sense, what is it types. But I think for a general audience, non-science person not engaged in not scientific pursuit in that sense, for them, when they make a full scope and then see something very interesting through a slide, it's amazing for them. You should watch those. So things like that. So you'll have to think through, see what else can be done that can be tangible and that can have an engagement with the audience. So those things are something that CSR will be very happy to support.
So you've
And
touched
on the
upon two great points, Sudhira. One is an experience can be tangible or a product can be tangible. So several of our
yes,
awardees do have projects ongoing that could become science kits once they
yes,
move on from the IOG. And that could be a source of revenue to cross-subsidize their ongoing platform, as well as to sort of turn their project into a kit. The other
right,
thing is you approach CSR saying, oh, hey, we can give your team members or your company members an experience, and that
yes,
cross-subsidizes. They'll also
yes,
have to work out how their institutes can receive CSR funds, but I'm sure those processes would be in
yes,
place in the larger institutes.
yes,
Sounds good.
yes,
And
yes.
we have a couple of other questions coming up. So Garima, what was your first question? Now that we
I have
settled.
no, sorry, I'll answer the first question very
Sure.
quickly. So Gubbi Labs, we have four verticals. As in, one is primarily on research, second is courses, third is consulting and advisory, and fourth is science communication. So research, courses, and science communication doesn't necessarily generate revenue. Of course, we try to look through grants, and now that science communication, we are making it more sustainable in that sense. But bulk of and courses also are mostly at no cost, as in we don't necessarily generate a surplus as such, but it does help because we like to teach. So we love to, like, sort of, the last course that we did was in Agastyamalai Conservation Community Conservation Center in Tirunelveli, which is a trees field station there. So it's a 6-day thing, and it was fantastic to do it in KMTR and things like that. But it's you do things like that, but also most of our revenue has been through consulting and advice. Because see, something that I guess all of you should I would strongly urge you to realize is that all of you have excellent skills having come this far. You just have to unpack those skills and sort of market in a way that people will pay you for applying those skills, right? And
That's very
the
true.
industry pays well. So you'll have to compartmentalize in a way that you and like, because I'm sure all of you, like if you're all PhDs or post PhDs, like in faculties, right? Isn't you inherently have skills. I can tell that without a doubt. But just like we have not been trained or tuned in that outlook, just you'll have to expand your
So,
horizons a
which
bit
is
and
why
then
if you say write a grant for outreach, we'll all be able to do it. But you say approach CSR for outreach, and we're all thinking like how, when, where, how do we go about it? Okay, great. Thanks for the 3 questions, Garima. We'll take on another question from Hansika, which is in the chat window. She says it's true that there are a lot of in-house outreach cells and professionals at institutes. Now that like IIT Gandhinagar has a cell, NCBS has a cell, for example. Aren't they unlikely to outsource work to freelancers now compared to 5 to 10 years ago when they didn't have these in-house facilities and manpower that they were paying salaries from institutional funds? So how has the freelancer scenario changed? Has it in fact made it tougher for freelancers now to be able to get this kind of institutional money that you said is one funding source?
Uh, so, well, like I guess about 9, 10 years ago, there were not as many freelancers as you had today. The good news is that you have more freelancers today. Uh, so it's also, I think, a sort of a good progression in the sense that some of these institutions are having in-house outreach centers as such, and there will be always be channels. So like you have to network with the key persons involved there, and there will be opportunities for freelancers. I don't think everything any of these institutions are managing in-house. So there are certainly a lot of opportunities for freelancers.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Uh,
We
yeah.
can hear you, Karishma.
Okay, maybe I got cut, but all right. Thank you. So there are any more questions? IOG awardees, as we head a little bit into the wrap-up section in another 3-4 minutes. But any more questions? As maybe if you're thinking of them, Sudhira, I just also wanted to ask you that what is the model of Gubbi Labs? Is it a not-for-profit? Is it a Section 8 company? What is the model that worked for you?
No, for a long time, I think we have been a non-profit, which is a Section 8 company. But for-profit, it has allowed us greater flexibility and doing things that we could do. So for a long, like we have the science communication thing is pushed under the for-profit, non-profit one, which is the foundation. But otherwise, our consulting and advisory and all remains in the for-profit entity. But we started off as a for-profit enterprise, and that continues.
I see. Wonderful. Okay. So, Sudhira, Chandana had a question next.
Chandana, your voice is breaking.
Okay, maybe I will write the question.
Chandana says maybe she will write it here. I'm not sure even if my connection is coming through.
You're audible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Chandana says she's writing it here. Okay. Maybe we can think of some more questions. More questions then. Of course, I mean, we will share that the possibility of applying for more grants after the IOG tenure is always there. There is the American Geophysical Union Science Communication Grants, Microbiology Society,
Yes.
UK grants, Royal Society, American Cell Biology grants. There are small grants, but they're all in the order of, IOG money, basically £1,000, $1,000 sort of thing. To really grow it, one would have to think beyond outreach grants.
Yes.
I just have a comment since you just said this, Karishma. Thank you. Uh, if if India Bioscience would be able to collate the science outreach grants, I think that itself might be a really helpful step forward for all of us.
So Mayuri, I don't know if you're ahead of us or we are ahead of you, but we spoke of this today afternoon before the
Yes.
webinar.
Yeah.
So great. So we want to do that. We want to get into that because we also feel, Sudhira, that they're all working scientists, right? So nobody's really making it a career right now, their project or initiative. So they will have to work with a framework that will allow them to keep their current jobs. And that's what we sort of want to facilitate. So maybe Manjula, in that compilation we talked of, we will
Yes.
add these or different
Yes.
possibilities.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and we either Chandana, I think we are waiting for your question, but this was something we all grappled with as an IOG awardee. I understand it. Yes, sir. Couple of
Hansika,
more questions, Sudhira. Yes, Manjula.
yeah, I think
Yes, yes.
Hansika has asked the question in the chat box, but yeah, not oh, Chandana is also added. Yeah. So, are you able to see Sudhira, or should I
Yeah,
read
yeah,
it
I'm
out here?
reading through that.
Okay.
We have been approached by a media partner for a project for taking it under the umbrella. How do we maintain our identity or negotiate with them since we have no experience as enterprise? Uh, yeah. So, very briefly, I think it depends how you want to position in that sense. Chandana. Because what happens is, as a lab, if you're trying to send out a sort of a press release and or you have a project and that some media wants to cover it, they are the thing that something that very strange that works in the media houses is they want exclusivity in the sense if newspaper X has carried, newspaper Y wouldn't want to carry that because they will say no, this has been already carried by paper X. So for which they would want that exclusivity in that sense, unless it is some shattering research or something that everybody keeps talking of, or like the awards and stuff like that. But if it is just like as a press release or some normal outreach, like I said, the media houses earlier, like the media houses may not want to pay for it. They will be happy to consume the story and publish it in as a series and so on. So the journalist, whoever is handling it, will be happy to get some 3 or 4 stories and they will be happy to write about it. So you will get some press coverage and all of that, but they may not really pay for it, as in
So I
that
think,
sense.
Sudhira, what she means
I
is
don't
they
know if
want
that
to take
answered
the
you.
project ahead. It's not that they want to feature the project alone. They sort of want to like have a buy-in to the project. You know, say it's
Um,
XYZ's project. So maybe I think a MOU then, Chandana, would be one way to do it.
is yeah.
You could try that,
Yeah, something that the other
possibly.
thing, yeah, we'll also flag there is, yes, you should certainly do think of an MOU. But alongside, I think while you're doing an MOU, you should also make sure that the IP is stays back with you. As in, they will only do things or take things out after the PI has okayed it. In the sense they can't just take away everything that you have on the table and things like that. So there are those things that you will have to make sure. It all also depends on the nature of the project, in the sense if it is externally funded and there is money for it through the funding and all of it, whether you would want to part with that agency or things like that. Or you can also ask if that media partner has funding to do certain outreach in that sense, as in what is that they bring onto the table and things like that. Like while you're providing this content or all like sort of thing, what is that are they going to bring on the table is something that you could ask and then explore how to kind of take it forward.
Sounds good. Like
I'm
an
not sure
MOU
if
will
that
be
answered, but
basically an
we'll be happy
agreement of
to.
what each partner brings on the table then. Yes,
Yes, yes,
sure.
yes.
Sudhira, we'll have to wrap up. We have closing remarks as well for our IOG cohort of awardees, but we will take Hansika's question, one more question. She says a lot of
Yeah.
freelancers struggle with a sense of credibility, which translates into the value that they provide. It's not clear what institutes will value or what a company will value in terms of the person that is a freelancer as well as the offering, the product, the service. So what
Mm.
so how can
Yeah.
best freelancers who are part of these projects build their sense of credibility when approaching institutes and companies? What helps?
Yeah. So so I think building a portfolio helps in that sense. And unfortunately, the first few ones, it's a bit of a trial, and building trust takes time. So you'll have to connect with the editors on the one hand, and also the key persons at these institutions, and kind of like making sure they build trust or you build trust with them and things like that. It's a mutual thing. So and something that I keep telling, and talk to all my team as well, is that your work should speak for yourself. So whatever you do it with excellence. It will speak for you. As in, if you're writing well, and people will start taking note of it, and they will want you to write for you. As in, that's how it is. So, but it will take a while. As in, nobody will just take you if you've written only 3 stories or 4 stories. You may have to have some, like, about at least 5 or 10 stories, saying that these are the things that you have written, these are the media houses you have written for, and so you're capable of doing this. It's just not one-off thing that I have done, and so on, things like that. I guess with that, I think you should be able to. But building that the initial set of 10 is key. As in, it is a struggle. All of us have gone through it. Uh, but I guess one has to hold the fort until then. And if you're passionate and extremely interested in doing things, nothing should stop you there, and you should be able to do it.
Thank you, Sudhira. And we will now move to our closing section. Sorry, but we need to keep time. Or about their projects, please email us. We will try and answer them. Or we will try and get them answered from experts. But please do feel free to email us. Like we said, it's more than just a grant. And Manjula has another announcement related to your project.
Yeah, so I would request all the IOG awardees to, share your project and resources that you have built over a period of time with the, IOG grant. So we would love to showcase it on our website under resource section. As Karishma already mentioned, we are thinking to compile it into a booklet, and we would love to, share with all of you. And thank you again for joining us today. Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Manjula, shall we take
useful.
a group picture?
Yes.
Thank you,
yes,
Sudhira. It was
yes,
very useful.
yes,
As always, with any good talk, we fall short of time.
yes. So I will just quickly.
So thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this with us.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.